So, addressing our theme today, which is Finding Common Ground, a philosophy and business studies professor dialogue about the mission of an Assumption education, I'd like to introduce our two presenters and our two dialogue partners this morning. Dr. Catherine Pastille is an assistant professor of management here at the college. Catherine holds a master's in counseling as well as an MBA and PhD in business administration. In her early career, she served as a youth minister, director of religious education, and a college campus minister in the Diocese of Providence before a mid-career transition into administration and management. Dr. Pastille holds professional certifications in teaching business ethics and in teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction. She has received extensive training in both Christian and Tibetan forms of contemplation and meditation. Catherine is now focusing her research on the influence of contemplative practices on teaching, learning, and working. Jason Bell has taught in the graduate program at the Higher Institute of Philosophy at Katholieke Universiteit in Belgium and at Mount Allison University in Canada, and has served at the University of Göttingen as Fulbright professor, as scholar in residence at Boston University, and as Onderzoeksfonds Research Fellow at the Husserl Archives. He currently is the Emmanuel Dalzahn Fellow here at the college and simultaneously serves as an adjunct professor at the University of New Brunswick in Canada. He was awarded the doctorate in philosophy at Vanderbilt University. His current research focuses on ethics and the relation of American, continental, and Catholic philosophy.
Hello, good morning. I have a very soft voice, so if you can't hear me, let me know. So this morning what we decided to do was to first do a more formal presentation of our thoughts. So Jason will talk about the Assumptionist education from philosophical liberal arts point of view, and I will then talk about it from a professional studies point of view. And before you get nervous, we're about 10 minutes, right? So it's not going to be all talk. And then the second part of our talk will be looking Jason at loyalty, which is one of his special concerns and research areas. And for me, I'll be looking at meaningful work. What makes work meaningful, which is one of my research areres.
So imagine yourself in this scenario and think about what your state of mind might be. It's August, the temperature is sweltering. You are a board member and executive of a multi-million-dollar international corporation with all the duties that this entails. In addition to these heavy responsibilities, this week you are hosting a family reunion with members visiting from all over the world, some of whom you have never met, some of whom do not speak your language, and others who speak it poorly. Also, there will be a stranger visiting your home to live with you for a few days. Then next week, as a charitable endeavor, you and this multilingual family will be arranging a voyage of healing for thousands of very sick people over hundreds of miles, a voyage requiring transportation, food, and housing arrangements. And you have also signed up for several hours of contemplative singing each and every day this week, and you have lunch and dinner commitments and meetings all over the city. Would you be stressed or would you be happy? Stress or panic might be a natural response. Or might the grace of friendship intervene, subsuming your stress to joy? For a week last August, I, the visiting stranger, lived with the Assumptionist community in Paris, France. The situation I just described is theirs, and they are happy. I was in Paris because, as Dalzahn Fellow, I'm interested in learning more about the teaching of Father Emmanuel Dalzahn, the founder of the Assumptionists. I've been glad to learn from his writings, but I was surprised to learn so much from the enduring spirit of the order he founded. And here, I think, is a special way in which we can understand the unique mission of Assumption College as both a pre-professional and a liberal arts college. The Assumptionists are a Catholic order, of course, but you may not know that they are also a business order, owning and running a major publishing house that publishes what was recently reported to be one of only 3 profitable national newspapers in France, La Croix, the Cross. Thanks to Julie from the library, they carry this there. You can go and read it. It's published daily. It is the only one of these national French newspapers with a growing circulation, along with publishing a host of magazines and books. Living with Christ, you might have seen this, Catholic Digest. There's a couple of other publications you can find in the library. Here's one from France that my children who grew up in Belgium subscribe to. They rush to the mailbox and they see this. This is called Phosphore. They read it cover to cover in a couple of hours. These are things you find in newsstands in France. This is, you don't go to a specialist press. You just see the Assumptionist publications. Their family reunion each August is centered on the gathering of Assumptionist priests and religious from all over the world, Vietnam, the Congo, Romania, and so on, who help with the annual pilgrimage that they arrange to Lourdes, the famous Marian apparition site in France, where thousands of pilgrims, many of them very ill, pray and petition for miracles. The hours of contemplative singing, morning, noon, and night, are the shared prayer life of the community. Not always does adding a straw break the camel's back. Sometimes it makes the camel stronger. I can testify from firsthand witness, these Assumptionists are in a splendid mood when they gather around the meal table, making jokes, trading stories, engaging in friendly debates about art, architecture, and theology. I've now been able to see, returning to our Assumptionist College in Massachusetts, made up of priests, religious, and lay members, administrators, trustees, teachers, staff, donors, students, loyal alumni, a community that celebrates both the professional life and the liberal arts and sciences, not accidentally, but as a matter of essence. By this essential strength, our scholars of the professional disciplines and of the liberal arts can communicate to our students the heroic spirit of hard-working restfulness, a seeming paradox, but a harmony described by the medieval Catholic thinker Meister Eckhart, who wrote that a person should have the life of rest and peace in God is good, that he should bear a painful life with patience is better, but that he should find rest even in his painful life, this is the best of all. Assumption College calls us to a loyal life of intellectual and practical service, as does its sponsoring order, as does the founder of the congregation, Emmanuel Dalzon. It is a rare and precious model, one of immense value to its students, who learn at this college how to think and how to apply their thinking to the practical business of improving human life. This, Emmanuel Dalzon writes, is like our Lord in Jesus Christ, who was born to the working class, who was a worker, who was also a teacher, and who also prayed to contemplate the whole. So to our philosophical hero Socrates, who was a worker, a stonemason, and a philosopher, and who says in a dialogue recorded by Plato that justice emerges from that virtuous state of work and festivity in which people will, quote, produce corn and wine and clothes and shoes and build houses for themselves, and they and their children will feast, drinking of the wine which they have made, wearing garlands on their heads, and hymning the praises of the gods in happy conversation with one another. To work and to rejoice, I have seen that this works in the joyous communal life of the Assumptionist community in France, and in the deep friendships among faculty and students enduring in the lives of alumni here at Assumption College. The liberal arts originally meant the arts of freedom as contrasted with slavery. In the classical sense, the liberal arts were, for instance, the study of mathematics, grammar, and logic. Now it has come to mean all things that are studied for their own sake, for the sake of knowing what things are in themselves, rather than for the sake of anything else. Saint Marie Eugenie, who founded the sister order of the Assumptionists, wrote to Father Dalzon of the importance of communicating the passion of philosophy to students. Philosophy is the love of wisdom that calls us to a free, superior position. The liberal arts, excuse me, as an ideal and reality tells its loyal servants that to deal with ignorance and error, we need to have all resources at our disposal. As Father Dalzon writes, all the disciplines, all the ideas written in all ages and in all languages. And by this commitment, a faith in this first principle of loyalty to the divine bearer of all truth and the providential source of all things, we are, he writes, successively freed by truth from error and evil. After the external chains of slavery are broken, we still must be freed from the slavery of self-seeking, the privileging of our immediate pleasures and pains over the whole world of truth. As St. John Paul II said during his pilgrimage with the Assumptionists to Lourdes in 2004, "Be men and women of freedom, but remember human freedom is a freedom which itself needs to be set free." Thus, as Father D'Alzon wrote, "Let us exclude no form of knowledge, but let a universal loyal commitment to truth be our sole preoccupation." And in our present-day Assumption College, we are also called to be free servants of truth who express our loyalty, our vocation, in a special role or discipline. Yet we are also parts of one body, one mission, called to be loyal to the loyalty of all truth seekers, contemplative and active. I wish to explore this theme of loyalty further in a moment, but let me pause at this reflection. The liberal arts represent a crucial part of wisdom. So too do the professions. Yet neither alone nor even together are they sufficient to account for the whole good in which we share and advance in individual and common purpose. Yet by their harmonious combination, we turn towards fuller, more complete, more wholesome, and more integral being. Here is a clue that may help clarify a mystery. But now let me turn to my fellow detective, Professor Pastille, who I think understands this mystery very well.
Review of education. When I reflected on Jason's stories about Emmanuel D'Alzon and the Assumptionist community in Paris, I not only heard a story about the past and the present, I also recognized a glimmer of a vision for the future. I say this because, in terms of the history of business, change occurs in repetitive cycles. My sense is that we are currently in a process of transitioning away from the notion that business's only responsibility to society is to make profit, toward a model in which social and environmental responsibility are the norm. We have clearly not yet reached the tipping point, as evidenced by the various failures of contemporary organizations. But I think we are on the way to that tipping point. And I think the next generation has a vital role to play in ushering in a new way of working together in service of creating a better world. That is one of the reasons why the Assumptionist model of hardworking, joyous restfulness that Jason just observed is so important for us as educators, mentors, and role models, as well as to our students. It gives us an idea of the direction in which both the liberal arts and sciences and the professions can come together more toward building a culture in which both coexist and co-create a mutually benefiting harmony. Our culture seems to be engaged in what the anthropologist Anthony Wallace called a period of cultural distortion, which precedes cultural revitalization. It is a period of time in which society has lost its faith in institutions, but has not yet gotten to the point where there is agreement on a way forward that will serve the common good and harmonize the various fragments of society into a relatively stable whole. As we live through this period, it can appear to us that things are falling apart, when in fact that what is happening is that the older order is being rearranged a little bit, so that a greater harmony for a larger group of people can be brought into existence. Life may seem at these times to be quite distorted, for us and for the students we work with. Our challenge is to remember that this is one moment in history that can, if we continue to work together, yield even greater unity than we've realized thus far. Dissatisfactions with organizations of all types are well known, so I won't take time to recount them. But let me call your attention to a few dimensions of change that I think important signals to an emerging sense of organized work. And I think a lot of these you've probably already noticed in your own work. For example, we can no longer look at the organization, its structure, meaning whether it's a large corporation, a small business, a for-profit, or even to look at industries or sectors like finance or health or education, and justify automatically stereotyping one as good or evil. We see more and more today corporate examples that no longer follow the rule of profit at any cost. Today, literally, hundreds of multinationals and corporations are recognized for their sense of ethics and responsibility, and thousands reinvest significant sums of money into their employees' well-being, their social relationships, and the natural environment. Secondly, brand new forms of organization have arisen over the last 20 years. For example, social entrepreneurs that have a social mission and earn profits to support their mission have taken root and appear to be one of the emerging models for organizations of the future. Third, it was not all that long ago when working was almost always a hardship in some way. And it was a fair reflection to say that workers were, in almost all cases, treated as if they were nothing more than machines. Today, in developed countries, this treatment of employees is nearly extinct, but we're not there yet. All these developments are signs that change is on the way. The question is, where are we headed? What will be the new harmony that emerges? The assumptionist approach to life, work, and education provides us with a possible pathway forward. In Jason's words, they are a community of people who are hardworking, joyous, and restful. In regard to the professions and their place in the assumptionist approach to education, we tend to take the development of purpose of the various professions for granted, since they were created to ensure the general public of equality and safety of products and knowledge and expertise of service providers. Professions hold their members accountable to a high standard of ethics and service, and as such make a valuable contribution to society simply by being in existence. Your work here, our work here, is that kind of a profession that we serve, and that we serve with a sense of moral purpose. This is as true of the business professions as it is of every other profession. That's not to say that organization and the professions are without fault, or that corporations especially have not inflicted more than their share of pain on humanity. It is only to suggest, like the liberal arts, all the professions are striving toward the same goal, toward a partial manifestation of the infinite ideal, as Jason had mentioned to me in one of our talks. Work is in the process of becoming an instrument of liberation. It is one of the ways in which people can discover their potential, exercise their capacities, and make creative and meaningful contributions to the world, while also creating conditions in which more and more of humanity have the opportunity to become free in the deepest sense of that word. While we can find signs of cultural change that are leading in a positive direction, there are just a few recent changes that I'd like to call to our attention as things that we need to pay attention to. First, we all know that the nature of work today has changed significantly from the work our parents did. My observation is that while technologies have played a vital and invaluable role in advancing human well-being, they do at times overwhelm us with information that does not necessarily lead to knowledge or truth, especially when that information remains fragmented and not woven into the ongoing experiences of our lives. Knowledge of the grand narratives, such as those our students learn in the liberal arts and sciences and the humanities, provide us and our students with the ability to put important frames around those fragmented pieces so that they can make sense of what otherwise can feel to them and sometimes to us like a cold and chaotic world. Second, almost all work now requires that we do more than complete a task. And you can think about your own work as I bring up these points. In almost every organization and profession, we are challenged to think about the meaning and significance of the tasks we do, no matter how menial or tedious they might seem to us. We are challenged to think about the organization for the benefit of society in some way. Learning to create a life in which work and contemplation are well balanced prepares students for meaningful successes in life. Technologies have also made us more aware of our common humanity as well as our common, quiet desperations. An over-reliance on technology can leave us feeling isolated from each other, which can arouse a greater desire for relationships, or can leave us feeling isolated and alone. Our students often talk about a sense of alienation that they feel as a result of their over-reliance on technical forms of communication. The assumptionist emphasis on community can be a remedy for them and for us. On a larger scale, political, social, health, and environmental problems are no longer confined to one area of the world, nor any segment of humanity is untouched by world events. In short, we need each other, more now than ever before. We need every bit of knowledge, we need every resource available to us to overcome the challenges of our times. The assumptionist approach to education creates an environment in which we can find what we need to create a better society together. This is not a time in history in which we can afford to allow ourselves to indulge in local loyalties, meaning to our specific departments or disciplines. In a very pragmatic sense, the survival of humanity may hinge on our ability to become even more human, in the best sense of humanity, and to do so while being deeply engaged in a world that has already deified machines. It may hinge on our willingness to be more and more inclusive in terms of our openness and respect for all forms of knowledge, so that we can use every resource available to overcome the epic challenges of our times. To return to my theme, I think we are in a time of transition. The assumptionist model of education is not a vestige of the past. It's not an outdated way of being in the world. It is immensely relevant to us and to our students because it provides us with what we call in business studies a compelling vision for the future, one in which we are all oriented toward and loyal to, a coherent narrative about the absolute greatest good. I will end on a point of personal privilege. Because of my training in my particular discipline, I am more than ordinarily aware of the harm that we do to ourselves and our students whenever we allow ourselves to slip into a mechanistic way of performing our own work, or of thinking about our lives and of our students' lives. Even though we know better, even though we want more for ourselves and for our students, often when time is short, workloads are heavy, and it feels like the demands of life are pressing on us, we shift into a mechanistic gear, if you will. We get into a model of pumping out work, rather than paying attention to our own human needs and that of those we love and for whom we hold a duty to care. This approach, while it tends to get the job done, and is a particular emphasis of my discipline, I have to say, has also been shown in professional studies to almost always lead to physiological, psychological, and social harms if we do not purposefully and periodically step away from our work, if we do not do our work mindfully, with awareness and deliberation, in service of some considered greater good. The assumptionist model of blending contemplation with work has been shown to result in healthier and happier lives. The model of being joyful in the midst of our work and contemplation is a real gift to us and to our students and to future generations.